All right. Hello, Jess Claire and Tom Forts Mayer here, live with a very important discussion tonight. If you are joining in, please do say hello. I'm just going to bring up my phone so I can see who is joining in. Let's have a look. We're in Earth Elders. We're across. If you are jumping on, please do say hello. We consider that this is probably a very important discussion. It's very topical. I've had a number of conversations about people, and I just want to really explore it. To be honest, it's something. I've had probably around 4 or 5 discussions. So, anyone who is jumping on who knows something about this, hello, Christy. Who's experienced this or knows people who have. I would love your thoughts on this. Tom and I were just offline going, what were we going to talk about tonight? And we were thinking we were either going to talk about yoni massages or parental alienation. We might leave the yoni massage for next week. But tonight we really want to explore this topic. It's very topical for me. When I mentioned it to Tom, he's like, absolutely, he's experienced something like this. So I'd be very curious what you think about this. Like I said, if you are jumping on, please do say hello. And the first question I'd like to ask you is, have you experienced or do you know someone who has experienced what they call parental alienation or emotional manipulation? I'm going to put a big call out there and say, I think it's really like it's a big problem. And I think in my own experience, it's happened to me, still happening. And I don't know it's happening knowingly. And I think that it's become quite normal as someone who gives birth to a child. There becomes a certain level of privilege, and that's what I want to talk about tonight, and I'll be interested to see what you think. Just because you gave birth to a child, that is really not okay. Like it's like the whole male privilege thing. It's like just because you're born with a penis, you can somehow talk to people a particular way. It's like the same thing. It's like, no, just because you have a penis doesn't mean you can do that. And just because you give birth to a child does not mean you can act however you like either. So I'd be curious, Tom, what do you think? Where do you want to begin with this conversation? If you are jumping on, please do contribute to this conversation. I get it's a heated discussion.
Well, I think, even just as you're talking there, as I think about it, I think one of the things that's always most brutal about these imbalances is when the people on the other side of it are as conditioned and programmed to think that that's normal and okay. So for me, it's so strong in my programming that the biological mothers of my children, I've had babies with 3 different women, and so my 2 exes. How ready I am to give them authority, how ready I am to consider their opinion about my child's welfare and how they determine my level of contact. Now, I have to battle against that internal kind of bias, but it's there. I feel it in myself. And the degree to which it's operated that I'm consciously aware of, and how I've managed to, try and bring that to balance is one thing, but I'm aware that iceberg under the water of how much actually I've agreed to terms and limitation based on contact and style of contact and frequency of contact has been determined by, their privilege and my kind of semi-unconscious acceptance of that dynamic. And if, I feel that I, with my first ex, I've been very, very lucky that my daughter's welfare has, in her head, has included her daughter having a really, really good relationship with me. And therefore, despite the privilege, through her sanction, and the grace of her decision making and my luck that she really valued that she made our relationship a priority and she supported that relationship. And yet still, I'm massively held back by the fact that, it's on her terms and based on what she believes to be, best. Like she gets the carrying vote.
Yeah. And that's what I've sort of experienced recently. And there's a few situations here, one of which is my own that I've sort of come up with. And I'm a mum in a same-sex relationship. So we've got 2 kids that are two different mums. So my daughter I gave birth to, my son my ex gave birth to. My son's the youngest. And because he's the youngest, what's interesting is that that somehow that baton has gone over to her, and she's now, because our youngest was given birth to by her, she sort of has been given all the rights by the court. So not just that, so your situation, you're the man. So I've just by default become the man. I play the male role, which is really interesting. And even I fall into that trap of, well, I didn't, it's the same. And then I've got a situation where just recently someone told me about what happens in same-sex couples in women is that one can sometimes typically give birth and the other doesn't, but they're still just as much a part of creating the children, to which in this case, this woman's ex has basically said for years that she's not actually really the mum and convinced her kids out of even being her being the parent. And it was just so awful listening to it. What I'm interested in though is what's going on that people think it's okay to treat other people this way and call it, it's actually emotional manipulation. It's actually emotional abuse, but call it's in the best interest of the kids. Like, why is that happening? And how come as a society, we buy into people's BS about this? I just don't get it.
I mean, it's so often, it's a collapsing of I'm angry at you and I've fallen out with you and I no longer think of you as a valuable person. Therefore, it's hard for me to place a value on you being an important part of my child's life. It's essentially an extension of that,
Yeah.
And that's so awful. And of course, there's different ranges. With my first ex, when we separated, she was really angry at me, but she despite that, she still wanted to protect my relationship with my daughter, and she's never spoken ill of me to my daughter. And every day that we were apart, we had a deal that when I had my daughter, I would send her a photo every day, and when she had my daughter, which was then 75% of the time, she would send me a photo every day. So even as though she was mad as hell at me and upset and angry, and she sent me a photo every day just to keep that connection there, and it's like, I have so much respect for that integrity, so much respect for that care, but so many people can't make that separation. They see the other person as being lower value, and therefore they don't place a value on their child, that person being a primary part of that child's life.
Yeah.
So they don't support the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested in why. Like, how would you downgrade this? Because how would you downgrade this? Just before I do, I just want to acknowledge everyone that is jumping on. Hello, Christy Louise. Hello, Facebook user. Don't know who you are, but hello. Naomi, hello. Christy, hello. If you are there, please, I'm not sure who you are if you're a Facebook user, but please do make yourself known. I'm interested in that. At what, you talk about it, it's almost like it's almost like you just got luck. Hey Jane, nice to see you. You just got this luck with this first ex. It's like, I was very lucky that she, despite her anger, would still act in the best, would still act and give you a photo, despite how much she didn't like you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, you might have had another ex that didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
right?
I did. I had a second ex who, when I was together, was so heartened by the fact me and my first ex did that. She thought it was such a beautiful practice. We talked about it. I marveled at, you know, how grateful I was for this co-parenting relationship I had with the first. And then when we separated, she refused to do it. It was just like, and it has had an impact. It has had an impact on my relationship with my son, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I've even gotten to the point where, you know, people have sort of looked at my life, and I've even had friends go, I'm not even safe to have children with people anymore. Like, it's gotten to the point where people are so terrified about partnering in case they break up now.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just pervasive. As far as I can see, this is a pervasive problem. I don't have to look far. I actually marvel in some of the people that I know that do it. And I know, you know, some people that might jump on and see this. There are some people that I know that have ridiculously amazing relationships with their exes.
Mm-hmm.
And I honor that so much that I made a choice that I would not be in another relationship with anyone who didn't appreciate exes getting along.
Yeah, of course.
So much so that just someone I dated couldn't be with me because of it, because they were so jealous. And I'm like, too bad. I'm not going to be with someone that cannot see the beauty and honor it is in honoring your ex. Like, I can't.
Yeah, it's like the love shouldn't go away, right? You might, you know, it's like conscious disentangling, you know, and, you know, maintaining that love, and at least for the kids, maintaining that love, you know? And it's like our children need to be held by two parents that love them, even after our separations. So me and my first ex, you know, it's like, even when it was difficult between us, you know, we still maintained a working friendship for our daughter. And we still go out, you know, I have a new partner, I have, you know, more kids, and yet still my partner now gives me space to go and have family days with my ex and my daughter, so that she's in that triangulation of love. And we hug, the three of us, because my daughter needs to be held by two parents that love her and that love each other. We're not meant to be together. I don't want to be with her anymore. And, you know, my partner, Ria, she supports me having a good and healthy relationship with my ex because she loves my daughter too. She wants my daughter to have two parents that love each other. But of course, Ria wouldn't be able to do that unless she knew that we were good and solid and strong, and I don't want to be with my ex. But you have to be able to hold steady in that. But you know, there are, I think we mentioned this before, but there are, as I understand it, there's a trend in Holland now where children who were brought up by co-parents are choosing to have children with friends because they just love the co-parenting model. My daughter, you know, because we've done that well, you know, now, I mean, we can still be tense, my ex and I. There's reasons why we're not together, and they play out in our dynamic even today. But I have keys to her house. I pick my daughter up from school. I feed my daughter at her house. I put her to bed. Then my ex comes in late from what she does because she's having an evening to herself. We have a cup of tea. We discuss parenting things. I get on my way. You know, it's like that's so beautiful, right? And you know, and it's. You know, with my other ex, who I share a child with, it's the opposite of that. You know, it's the opposite of that, and it's so painful. The contrast is so painful. But my daughter, where we've made it work, my daughter goes from house to house feeling adored and welcomed and excited. It's like I haven't seen her for half a week or a week, and then when I see her, I'm like, yay, you know. And then she goes back to her mum, and she's had a few days off to recoup, and she's like spent her life going backwards and forwards being celebrated. But we separated when she was only 18 months old, and she had no rules or conditioned ideas about what that was like. So she didn't really deal with our separation trauma till she was 5 or 6. When then she was like, oh, you know, other people's families are together, and the consequences then really dawned on her. There were other consequences that were unconscious. So there's some benefits to that. But when you're separating your kids at 7 or 8, or, you know, anything upwards from 3, really, or even 2, there's so much care that needs to be placed in the protection of the relationship. And ideally, every parent should want their child to believe in their genetic makeup. every parent should want their child to believe that they're born from something where there was once love and still respect. You know, our children should, even if the other partner is just an absolute disaster, Sorry, what was that?
So how come? Sorry, your internet's just cutting out a little bit, but what you're saying is really important. We absolutely should. So how come people dress this up as good parenting? And I'm just going to put it out there because I'm really curious. I'm so freaking fired up about this topic because I've seen it so much, and there's been instances of it occurring in my own circles this week. Firstly, I'm going to make these statements. Are we really surprised as a society that there's so much domestic violence when there's so much intentional parental alienation and abuse, emotional abuse and manipulation dressed up as good parenting? Are we really? Are we really surprised that when, say, a man has their kids taken away from them without any choice or any, and I'm not condoning the behavior, but are we really surprised that guy reacts? Are we really? Firstly, we've suppressed men enough to the point where they don't actually really express their feelings. And then when they have their kids taken off them, then they react in anger. And then we're like, oh, just calm yourself. You know? I'm like, we've set ourselves up for some real problems here. And then when they act, put a domestic violence case on them and make it more proof why they shouldn't see their kids. I mean, this is ridiculous, right? It's become for me, because I consider myself someone who's treated in the male role. You know, and it's like I'll just give you what happened to me. I had my kids taken off me. You know, one day I'm seeing them every day, and then one day I'm not. And I went through, and look, I still got to see them, and I won't get into the details of it, but I was going from not seeing them or seeing them every day to not seeing them. It was awful. Like, I'm on the ground crying, going, I have to hold myself together. I'm experiencing more pain than I've ever experienced in my life. I'm lucky that I had a guy that was with me. All I wanted to do was take everything in my house and just throw it. I wanted to smash up my whole house. I was in so much pain. Now, fortunately, I had someone with me who I could just express. And he was so beautiful, and he loved me through that. And in that moment, I got so connected to what men experience. Now, I've done a whole lot of work to manage my reaction so that I can separate my thoughts, my experience. I didn't grow up with testosterone at levels men have. I haven't been told to suppress my feelings. I have not lived in fact, we express them a lot. One of the biggest complaints that women I've been with is that I talk way too much and say too many things, and actually I overshare. I have not had that. I connected in that moment to what it was like to be a man and what it was like to don't express yourself your whole life and then bear children and then be dictated to, have no control, and then I'll be told, oh, by the way, if you react right now, that's just going to be more evidence for it. So you are trapped in a corner. I am not surprised men bust out of those situations, guns blazing. And then we as a society turn around and go, I just don't understand why, X, Y, Z acted a bit crazy. Really? Can we really not understand that? I mean, what are we doing about the fact that this continues to go on?
Yeah. I mean, I just got really emotional when you verbalize that, because it's to this day, it's the most painful experience of my life. The breakup of my first relationship, I believe that all dynamics are co-created. And but it was very painful. It became unworkable. I didn't leave my child. I left a relationship because my child was starting to get exposed to tension in the house that meant her life was going to be shadowed by misery. And so I left because it was no longer workable. And it was no longer workable because I wasn't coping, and she was, getting worse and worse in terms of her emotional state and anger and depression and frustration. And I tried and I tried and I tried, and I played my part in that. I didn't leave my daughter, but then, then I didn't see her, and I saw her every week. I got her two nights a week, but that's not enough. I didn't want to leave my daughter. I didn't want to not wake up with my daughter every day. And I left the family home because that was less disruptive. And my daughter staying with her mother was the best thing for her. And me picking up my daughter, and every time I picked her up, she cried. And I had to then send a video of her laughing with me in the car like 2 minutes later, because otherwise her mum was crying because it was just the worst thing. She thought she was just giving her child away to someone, And then every night for probably a year, I put my daughter to bed and we'd had a great day, and she would, be obviously missing her mum, and saying, am I going back to mummy's tomorrow? And it's not because she wasn't having a good time with me, but because she was just so little. And the thickness of the skin that you have to weather that stuff is heartbreaking. And that was within a context where I had a partner that was trying to support that relationship. And it was heartbreaking that, it was just, you would have your heart caved in on the daily. And you just keep breathing and stand up and being a stand for your daughter and being for your child. It's like, it's so painful. And yet in I don't know what's like over there, but in the UK, fathers would be awarded access via the courts, and the police would never enforce them. So if the mum then just refuses to let them in, there's no recourse. There's no teeth in the legal system that works. So, they take them to court again, and they're told again, and then the police don't enforce it. And it's unenforced. It's an unenforceable law. And I've seen people have killed themselves at the fury. I've seen people want to. I mean, I got to that place myself where it wasn't a self-loathing thing. It was the strain and the stress and the pain of not waking up with my daughter, and just how painful it was, and how at times it was still obstructive. It's like a few times where I just wanted to just have the luxury of driving my car into a tree, and I felt it.
I understand. I mean, I'm noticing myself even right now being concerned about being super real about what happened with me, because I'm afraid it's going to affect, somehow my ex will see it and use it against me in court as a way to keep my kids away from me. Like, it's still to this point in my life, it still hangs over my head. Like, what will happen next that will be used against me, so that my kids can just be taken off me at any given time, right? But it was the same with me. I mean, I got to the point where I was like, I'm not surprised people hang themselves. I'm not. This pain is immense. And I had this discussion with someone today, and they told me a similar thing that they went through, right? And no one talks about that, because, I mean, if someone like me says that I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to be here anymore, right? This pain is excruciating because of that situation that I went through with losing my kids. It was like, but I have to share this, because this is what, I mean, in Australia, 1 man a week commits suicide in a separation dispute. It's very common, and I did the stats. Far more people are committing suicide in Australia than died from COVID. I checked out those stats on the weekend.
Yeah.
Right. So this is just as much. I mean, if we were to actually scrutinize the stats as much as our premier was scrutinizing all of the stats on COVID, if we were to scrutinize the stats on suicide, everyone would be shutting their borders forever. It's like, this is a huge issue. And I'm someone that has worked hard in the transformational space. And I got to that point and I wanted to, I just didn't want to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Then this is rampant. I'm not surprised it has this kind of impact. What I'm calling for here is that everyone looks at their own behavior in this.
Well, yeah.
We have to look at it. Yeah, sorry, you go.
No. The other shadow that I want to share is, there's a lot of condemnation of men who there's a separation and then men just disappear on their kids, right? Which is awful. And the long-term damage on the kids is awful. But what a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of men that I've worked with who have done this, they don't understand either. But it's because they can't bear the fucking pain of not waking up with their kids every day. They can't do half and half. They can't be heart open to their kids and not have them in their lives. And they can't be heart open to their kids and know that they've got a partner that's being obstructive or poisoning them against them or using them in a bargaining tool against them. They can't do it. It's too much. They will kill themselves. They will not cope. And so they close their hearts down. They close their hearts down so they don't see their kids, And then the other flip side, the other shadow side is, which comes from this thing about, our new partners. If you're going to partner with someone with children, then you have to, there's a reason why the fairy tales paint the step parent as being an evil step parent, because it's so flipping common. It's so common that the new partner is threatened by the past relationship and the children are the symbol of that past relationship. It's like they're the symbol of the fact you have fucked somebody else, right? I mean, it's like, talk about jealousy, right? And it's like, who would want to partner with someone whose kids wouldn't be fucking the most important thing in their life? It's like, right? It's like, why would you want to exert pressure on your partner to sideline their kids from a previous relationship? It's so flipping common that it becomes this kind of tug of war. It's like, where the new partner wants to see that the partner, values them in comparison. And so many men allow their new partner to, their insecurities. So then it's not even the women are asking their men to deaf out and to block out and to isolate from their previous relationship kids. It's the fact that the men sense that insecurity and do it themselves.
Yeah. So we've got the situation where, saying so much unnecessary pain in these separation stories. But just to complete that, this is the part of the problem. And so many men get, criticized for being commitment phobics. But it's like men know that they're going to, fall in love, have kids with somebody, and then they're going to love these things more than anything. And then their ability to control whether they can long-term have access to those orbs of love is, they know, they can see what happens in the world. To have kids with someone is to expose yourself to extraordinary threat in terms of you might not live with those kids anymore. Your partner might take them to another country or another state, and that the legal purchase, the legal recourse, even the social kind of position on this stuff is powerless. It's like, it's a lot to choose to have kids with somebody. It really is. I can see why, just from people that have hung around me, like my best friends. Like, I don't know that I want to have kids with someone, have them on my own, because they've seen what I've dealt with, right, for 3 years, and it's still not resolved, and that's only because of me. I am not going to stop going through the courts until I have my kids 50-50. I will not stop. It's been 3 years and I have them 4 days a fortnight. And even that's great. I'm not complaining, because this is the funny thing, Tom. I have them 4 days a fortnight, and some men say to me, that's great. That's a lot.
Yeah, you're above average there,
It's above average. That's what's disgusting.
I know.
And, it's disgusting, right? It's just disgusting, because I've apparently gotten a better deal having 4 days a week with my kids that I want to spend every day with. I think 50-50 is a really great compromise. It allows for people to have, their own lives and things like that. But I will not stop. I don't care if I'm in fucking court for the next 10 years. I will not stop. I won't. And that's what, as far as where I got to was that's what the court's there for. And I had this dream that, I've been through it because I spent about 20 grand on court fees in the beginning. And then I went, this is just ridiculous, right? I'm spending 20 grand on court fees and, no offense to my lawyers, but all they did was get carried away in the drama and wasted my money. And so I went to court myself. And all I did was deal with the facts. I was like, I want my kids 50-50. That's it.
Yeah, well, that's the courts in the UK support that, right?
Yeah.
They're now, legally here, they see that as an equal right.
Yeah. And so I want 50-50 and I go to court, and as I go to court, I just said, these are the things we don't agree on. Boom, 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 boom. But do you know what the affidavits have to say? The affidavits are full of drama and he said, she said, and she did this. And when she did this, she picked a nose and she's not a good parent because, and I'm just like,
that's awful.
It's just disgusting. I know, Bryce, we've just talked about this. I know, Bryce, I know. We just talked about what it was like being a man. And that's what the court documents say. But you go to court, that's not what they do. They go, what do you want? Why should you? Why shouldn't you? Okay, great. We'll make a choice, right? So it's really black and white when you get to a judge.
Yeah.
But 6 months until you get to one, it's just an emotional roller coaster. And everyone's reacting to all of that crap, right? And we're saying this, this is getting quite heated. I just want to make it clear, we're saying affidavits absolutely should be factual and pointed, but they're not. We've got parents who should be allowing their kids to see the other parent 50-50, but they're not. We've got cases where people are claiming domestic violence when it's not. We've got people that are claiming domestic violence when they have evidence for it, but take no responsibility for absolutely bringing out the worst in people and then claiming it's their ex's fault and then convincing their kids that they're a psycho. We've just got this constant, what I can see is this constant turnover of how can we drive each other so crazy and show that the other one's the worst one? I'm like, how do we deal with that as a community? Because it's like not okay with me.
Yeah,
how do we?
This is, there's one of the reasons, why community living is so effective and so powerful. It can go wrong. Osho, who was big on this, like the kids don't belong to the parents, right? So they belong to the commune, right? And that was awful because then like parents were like joining the commune and then saying to their 7-year-old, I'm no longer your mummy. You belong to the group, And, there was that, I can't remember the title of the book, A Life in Orange, I think, about growing up on the Osho commune. He said, I spent my life on tiptoes looking for my mother in a sea of orange, It's like there's lots of places in spiritual community where people are just selfish parents and they just don't want the responsibility. That's awful. I'm not saying that. But the wisdom in the love and understanding of communal living where the central support structure isn't just two people and that people are held communally. And then as parents come together or separate, it's like so much of this idea, and people, my first divorce lawyer, said the thing to remember is people get into their parental rights and actually we have to just think about our parental responsibilities. Like what is really in the best interest of the child? And it's like love, compassion, good communication, connection, spending time together outside of whether you're separated or not.
I want to make this point too, because the court, I thought this was quite interesting. Firstly, the court is just ridiculously Like, I was like, this is just not humane. I went to court, and I only went to court for this. And I was standing in there going, so there's this judge up here. It's really impersonal. There's some other guy in this weird apron thing over here who apparently helps the judge. They treat you like you like, they speak to you as if you're some like subordinate. And I'm there going, firstly, it's stressful enough being here, let alone the environment is intimidating AF. So I firstly criticize that in the sense that it's like, where's the humanity in this? This stuff is already tough, as it is what we're dealing with here. But I got in there and I realized my case was nothing compared to what's going on out there, right? It was even told to us, oh, you see your kids 4 days a week, a fortnight? Oh, you're not a difficult case. And then, what we have is then they went and dealt with really difficult ones, which is where things were involved, like violence and XYZ. There was a lot of that going on. What I want to get to, though, is if we look at the best interests of the kids, don't you think it's the parents' well-being? Isn't it in the best interests of the kids that the parents are looked after as well?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, totally.
Like if we're constantly looking at the best interests of the kids as only being something to do with the kids, then we're missing the fact that the emotional, mental, financial states of the parents are paramount in the kids' well-being.
Totally. In the peaks of my, struggle with it, my ability to be present and positive with my daughter was, it's not that it didn't happen, but it was veneer, and it didn't have it was frail, and I was tense and easy to anger at times because I was on the edge, and it was just, the whole thing was fucking painful, and also this is the environment as well for so many men, the financial burden of separation, so commonly, when I separated, left my beautiful home in Highgate and was living in a place that it wasn't even suitable for my daughter to visit, really. And I had to then try and finance a secondary property, because I was also still financing the other whilst we were in transition, because I couldn't just pull the rug and it's just like, so then, why does your daughter want to come to your, she's got a beautiful place in one place and then a less beautiful place, and you're trying to make it work. And it's, I remember having a birthday with my daughter, in a temporary bedsit, and us, blowing out candles and in this 1-bedroom living room study setup, and she's trying to make the best of it and I'm trying to make the best of it. And it's like, I look at those videos now and they break me open, We made it magical, but fuck me, it was hard. It was so hard.
It really is. And like Courtney has mentioned here, 9 years her husband hasn't seen his kids. And, I've just said that, I'm going and fighting in the courts. But, she's like, some of us don't have the strength. It's true. I get it. It's true. Like the what is required and the kind of the tenacity and the kind of fitness that's required for this is like survival fitness, emotional survival fitness. Like it's being put under the knife and just poked and somehow you've come out of it that much that some people actually just go, I just can't be poked this much anymore. Like, I just can't. I get it. Like we were talking, I get why men actually just disappear and don't look after their kids. I get it.
Cool. It's too bad. I also understand, obviously it's awful. I also understand why, as a revenge act, they don't just kill themselves, but they kill their kids and themselves as the ultimate fuck you to that person, right? It's like, I see that people obviously are up in arms about the horror of that, but you have to contemplate how does a person get to that place? It's like, that's the most extraordinary amount of pain. I mean, there's a charity in England called Justice for Fathers, you know, and they're like parachuting onto Buckingham Palace to bring attention to this stuff, you know, because the pain is incredibly difficult to articulate in a world that's not set up to understand it.
Well, not just that. I was a judgmental asshole before I went through this myself. I was a pretentious little cow in a corporate job, having the perfect life with my perfect relationship and 2 kids, and judging the F out of men. Just calling them bad dads. They were just losers that didn't look after their kids. They just had no responsibility. And then my wife left. I happened to be in the position I was. She took the kids. She put me through what she put me through. And I was like in a corner, crying, feeling that pain. And in that moment, everything that I ever thought about what men went through, I was like, I had no idea that it was like this. And I really connected in that moment, exactly what you're saying. You know, again, I'm afraid of saying this because it could be used against me, but absolutely, I watch those shows on Netflix and I'm like, are you really surprised why that guy did that? I've now been through the pain of having my kids taken away, of having no control, of wanting to just like rip through my house. I didn't act on it. I chose not to. But I certainly understand and get why people do.
Yeah. I've only, 20 years of practice as a therapist. I've only ever lost one client I'm working with to suicide. And it was this situation. It was actually a guy was partnered with a woman who was just so scared about her kids' welfare and blessings and love and compassion to her that she wouldn't let anyone else look after them. So no childcare, no babysitters, not even her mum, or she wouldn't. So they had their life balance was just, and they would fight about it all the time because she wouldn't let them out of her sight. She wouldn't let anyone else look after them, and she was exhausted. And the kids needed other input, and they needed to know that it was safe out there. And they ended up separating, about it. But then of course she's not going to let him have them for the night. And the courts told her, and it was just unenforceable. And she just kept refusing and he couldn't see his kids. And I guess it was his only way of letting them know that they were loved.
And that is the real.
Like, I can't see you, and I can't cope. And it's not just I can't cope with the pain. It was a message. It was like, you sit down your kids and you tell them your dad's dead, and why is he dead? You look them in the eyes and explain. It was a fuck you. It was revenge, and it was also a message. It was a communication. It was actually a love letter from him to his kids.
And it's terrible that is what's required for him to express his love.
And I've seen what Jessica's saying here. Yeah. And this is something I wanted to speak to as well, which is like so often the men or the other partner, they have such a short amount of time that they don't want to do the crappy stuff like homework.
Right. I don't.
They just want to do the fun stuff. They've got a tiny little window to make their kids feel loved. And they're in actually so much pain that being present is hard. So they just, eat crap and go to the cinema and just pack it full of, There's a really, really amazing film. I think it's called Chef. It's about a really top-notch chef who ends up just getting a taco truck. And you see his life with his kids, and they do it with this kind of short, sharp shot edits where it's like cinema, drink, pizza, and then drops back to the kids for the weekend. And it's a really brutal edit on how truck his kids, and they actually have proper quality time together. And I watched that, and I was like, oh fuck, that's me. I'm that guy, I'm like the fun guy, and it's all entertainment based, and so it's how, when we have a limited amount of time with our kids, do we also understand how to create real connection and build real presence. There's so much consciousness to be brought to separation, to the art of conscious separation. Divorce isn't bad for kids. Bad divorce is bad for kids. It can just be like a doubling of love, a doubling of Christmases, a doubling of birthdays, and the opportunity for more loving people to come into their life. The art of being a step parent is an extraordinary yoga. It is really a deep personal development invitation to be the most generous, magnanimous person who is not possessive and jealous, who can actually welcome these children into the home as though they are princes and princesses, And I see so many examples of that. And my partner is incredible with my kids in my previous relationships. And it's so important. And there's so much more that needs to be brought here. And you're right, not just for the welfare of the kids, but for the welfare of all of us.
Yeah.
And to create, it's like if separating is so awful, then who's going to want to get together?
Exactly. I think that's a really good, actually a really good question. I just want to recognize some of this. Pass a love letter, please. Tell me more about that. It's actually nice to see your face here. And Courtney's just expanding, just continuing to expand on, what her husband is going on that he can nothing do about it. And it's sometimes, people actually do experience it. They can't do anything about it, right? And I'd love to talk through, some of the things that that have worked for you. We've really gone into the depths of the pain of this. And I think I'm really glad we covered that, because I know that it was a huge eye-opener for me that, as a lesbian woman, I became this male role in society when I experienced what men went through. And I have the deepest of compassion for men of separated disputes now, and I would be curious, when I think of some of the things that have worked, right? Definitely for me, it was doing, again, the work on but looking at my own pain, having a look at my own triggers, having a look at what was really going on for me, and being able to fully get responsible as well for my own actions in things. I talk about when I when I stopped being the doormat and started being courageous, and what it actually took to have ease and grace through this, despite, and still have feelings of pain, but what it actually took, and what was that for you? Like, what did?
Well, I think what you're talking about is so true. There was a real turning point in my relationship with my first ex, where actually the tensions we were having were just an outplaying of our actual original fight. When relationships break, there's a primary fight at play, right? It's a primary disagreement about who's to blame, right? And that, no, you're bad, no, I'm bad, right? And it plays out in our divorce. It plays out in our fight about childcare, right? It shouldn't, but it does. And for me, I remember when my ex would be annoyed at me or whatever, she'd apply this emotional manipulation and basically be critical of me as a father. So she was amazing in regards to my access and the support and never slagging me off to my daughter, but she would slag me off to me, right? And I remember there was this magical moment where I was just like, my validity as a parent is now something I'm certain of. And I am no longer invested in your good opinion of me. And how you're speaking to me right now is not acceptable, right? That was it. Before we would have these long text arguments, massive paragraphs of how could you say that I do this or I do that or you blah, 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 blah. And I just stopped the drama, rested in my value, took my power back. It said that the communication boundary was being crossed. And it was the most amazing thing because I didn't see her for 2 days. And she came around, dropped my daughter off. She said, "Can I have a word?" I said, "Sure." And she went, "I'm sorry, I was being a dick." I was like, fucking hell. What a revelation. We hugged. Yeah. And she will still go there every now and again, and I just have to hold that steady place. And the truth is, it's the argument in the primary separation that's being played out in the lives of kids. And it's the dissolving that, is self-love, owning up to where we failed, apologizing, being accountable, loving ourselves anyway, taking the learning, applying new change, holding steady, not needing to be addicted to the validation or the good opinion of others, or to win the fight with the ex that's ongoing, the primary fight, and just transcending all of that and just bringing as much love and compassion. And the truth is, the greatest way, if we have access, and we don't always have access, the greatest way to resolve this is to, one, just be a positive force in the life of a child. If your partner or ex-partner truly loves their kids, when they see that you truly love them and that as a result of spending time with you, their life is better, that's the best chance. It doesn't always work because people's resentment and threat can get in the way. And of course, when we bring in new partners, that can be amplified. People are threatened that the new partner is going to become the fun mum, the better mum, all sorts of stuff can happen. But it's like, as we've seen in some of these comments, actually, if you can hold steady, then that child will come looking for you, and you need to be in your own integrity. So that when you look that child in the face, it's like, I fought for you, or I held steady. I sent money every month, even though I didn't see you for a decade. I love you. These are the letters that I would have sent had your mum been willing to show them to you. You have your file of love, that when they come looking for you, you have the evidence and the support, so that you can look them in the eyes and know that you're always there for them, even if you weren't actually physically there.
Yeah.
And they'll come back.
Yeah. Do you know what I've done? I've set up an Instagram, a private one, that's just me and the aunties of my kids. So there's a couple of like non-related aunties. And I post photos when I'm thinking of them. And I come across photos and I send them little messages. I mean, I'm hardly there. So it's like, I just do that. And it's a way of, and then every now and then when they come over, I'm like, oh, I've been doing this on the Insta account. They see it. I show them photos. And I know that that's going to be there for them when they're older. And they can go back and have a look at every time I thought of them when they went around. Because I don't get to see them all the time, right? So that's something I do. But one of the greatest things I did was sack my lawyer. I'm not suggesting that people do that. I'm not a lawyer. You do whatever you want to do. But I got, instead of getting a lawyer, I got a coach.
Amazing
I got
advice.
a coach. I got a coach who could hold me to account for in reality, what's happening, what I'm standing for. Okay, what do you need to be responsible for? What is your behavior, Jess, that is not working? What did you take actions on, Jess? How could you clean up? What are the things in that relationship that you could be responsible for? And I eventually, very much like you, I stopped ever needing any validation that I was a great parent. I know I'm a great parent. And I used to argue and fight with it. Anything that was not discussed with me, like any accusations, I never even interacted with them. Yeah. I would just say, no, that's just not what happened. I stopped the need to justify who I was. Yeah. And as a parent, and then fell in love with the person that I could be, and talked about becoming the ex that I would have loved to have.
Nice. That's powerful.
Yeah, and I started acting that way, right? Now, I grapple with this because now that I've actually gone all the way through this, and, I may have completely just dissed my ex this whole time, right? Okay. I want to make it really clear that I'm grappling with even how to talk about, because I don't believe in gossip, right? I never want to gossip about someone else or diminish anyone else. I also don't believe in hiding what's really happening. I don't believe in hiding and covering shit up, or what I call putting lipstick on a turd. If it's a turd, you call it for a turd, and it's currently a turd. But at the same time I'm also extremely aware that this is only happening because, this is believed to be the best interest. Like, it's like, in her world, this is the right thing to do, right? And that is what I'm interested in, is why we've developed as a society to believe that this is okay and that this is the best interest.
Yeah, it's this natural idea, or unnatural idea, or organic idea, or societally created idea, but probably more organic idea, that as the biological mother, we are intrinsically more connected, therefore more aware, therefore better placed to meet the needs of our child. And it's like, well, there's lots of truth in that, but there's also lots of reasons why that actually means you're more anxious, more controlling, more mollycoddling, all sorts of things. It's like what people don't understand between the feminine and masculine vibration is the fact that neither should agree with the model. Okay, it's like typically, and whether this is male or female identifying, or whatever your shape, your genitals, the vibration of masculine and feminine with us. The feminine wants to protect, preserve, nurture, and the masculine wants to stretch and to grow and to, it's like, and there's an interplay there, which, like, every one of my partners feels that the physical play that I do with my kids is probably just a little bit too rough, right? And my take on the feminine approach is just like, you're not inspiring confidence. You're actually in making it constantly safe and not allowing them to take risks and to possibly fall and hurt themselves. They're not learning how to become more powerful and confident and to learn their skill, right? And I understand why both are important. If both are doing their job well, neither should be comfortable, and both should think that there's something slightly wrong with the other model. That's how our kids get a balanced approach. But that gets played out in a legal situation, and it's just completely misrepresented as a lack of safety or lack, or something's wrong. But what you said as a kind of point, we're coming to a close. What you said about getting rid of your lawyer is so important. The system is set up directly to be adversarial, right? Mm-hmm. Direct adversarial. It's like, I represent you. I will fight tooth and nail to get you everything I can, because that's my job, right? And the other will fight. Of course, it's absolutely their interest for it to kick off, right? So any situation where there's profit to be made from it being more conflictual is a terrible idea. So I spent some time thinking about an enlightened, conscious form of legal process with separation. I'd like to share it with you now, right? Where you work with a gifted lawyer who, like, that lawyer could take any case of either side and fight tooth and nail for either side, because that's what they know how to do, right? So instead, you get one lawyer, and their job is to look at the estate, look at the thing, speak to every party in an mediated way, craft an agreement which is fair, both taking into account law, morality, ethics, needs of parents, needs of child, right? And their job is to craft an agreement, and they're paid well to do that, right? Then, once they've done that, you have a secondary lawyer whose job is to tear that apart and to look for it's not fair, right? And the fees of the secondary lawyer are paid out of the retainer from the first. So now profit is incentivized for it to be fair. The first person's like, I'm going to make this amazing, because the second person's not going to be able to spend any time pulling this apart because there's nothing wrong with it. And therefore they're incentivized, their profit is incentivized to make it fair, as opposed to, at the moment, their profit is incentivized for it to be problematic and adversarial.
And drama fuel.
So you are now making it so the profit is based upon it's the Solomon approach to childcare, and it's like, if you don't get this right, then the lawyers that we use to make this right will come out of your fee. It's like, well, I'll make it fair. Cool. Job fucking done.
Yeah. I would add one part to that. And that is that something like, if you do the work as true parents and individuals to heal your own parts and your own experience of trauma in the relationship as parents, as co-parents, and everything that has happened to come to this, you somehow get a discount. So it's like,
ultimately, when my first separation, I got legal advice. When a friend of mine was like, "Forget about rights, think about responsibilities to yourself and to your children." I then went back to my ex and I said, "Here's the deal. I know lawyers are going to cause trouble for us. We need a lawyer to help us know the legal steps. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to put down my shield. I'm going to put down my sword, and I'm going to bare my chest. I'm not going to have a lawyer. I'm going to pay for you to have a lawyer." And that lawyer is designed just to teach us the steps. We're going to work it out together. I love you. I don't want to be with you anymore.
That would
All right.
be great.
And so you are going to have a lawyer to help us with the steps. Please, that lawyer is going to make you gun for me. I have no protection. I have no protection. And so I need you just to use the lawyer for the steps. You can get the legal support and advice you want, and I will be unprotected. And that vulnerability meant, and our total legal bill for that divorce, I think, was $1,000.
Wow. Yeah.
But that took courage on my part. And I knew that she was a decent human, and that lawyer, fucking hell, they still tried to get her to get more of what she could maybe get. And I honestly think probably the deal I agreed with wasn't the most self-loving deal I could have agreed with for myself, but it saved so much money on fighting, and it saved so much energy on fighting, that it's by stepping into that arena in an undefended way, it meant that she was less likely to fight.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We might end on that. And I just want to say, look, this is a very triggering, activating topic. So if anything has left you in here, we have not explored every single situation that could possibly arise. I'm not condoning any domestic violence. I'm not saying that the way in which people treat each other through this is okay or justified in any way. We would just merely wanted to explore potentially a view of what may be behind this parental alienation, or what it's really like to experience not seeing your kids, and why people might be acting the way they do, right? And I think we did that, and I think
we did. And I think it's also really important that having, I just think there's a future of beauty around co-parenting, which is misunderstood and undervalued, and it actually can be incredible for kids. Where there's consciousness and love and good communication, it can be better for kids to actually have 2 households, 3 households to move through and around, and other siblings. And a friend of mine who came from a house where there was a lot of love and a lot of step parenting on all sides, she said, if you just think of it as it's just more people to love more people. And if we can bring that attitude, then the kids will be fine. And we will also be fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I look forward to that day. And I think I'm just going to say these conversations make that possible. So I'm like, with these conversations, having more of these conversations within our circles, being real about the experiences we're having, being able to connect in and actually express the hurt and pain that you might go through this with others in your family, so people can see the impact of some of this behavior, because maybe that we hide it is part of the problem. So thank you everyone who tuned in. Please, if you need to, please do reach out.
Benedict, Facebook, various.
Thank you, Naomi, Sally, Benedict, Jessica, Courtney, Bryce, Sonia, anyone else that's still hanging on that we haven't, said hello to or thank you to. Thanks for tuning in. As always, I love these discussions, and very important to discuss this. We might even need to do a take 2 on it. But until next week, we chose to do parental alienation, emotional manipulation this week instead of the yoni massage. Maybe...
And the corruption of the sexological bodywork industry. Not that it's all bad, but some of it is awful. So we'll talk about that maybe next time.
Maybe next week. I'd be interested in that, definitely. All right, everyone.
Cool.
Until next week, have a great night. See you later.
Bye.